Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. Yes, yes, yes. So welcome back again. I've had some requests recently to talk about penalties and the penalty system. Um, and I'm not going to get into the details exactly how they're calculated, but we'll show you the tools that I have loaded up onto HexFire and maybe how you might use those. I'd love to stay on screen with you. I think I need to upgrade my software. Got a little bit of a thing going on with the picture in picture. So I'll work on that another time. But for the moment, I'm going to go over to Hexfire and let's dig right in. This is where I need some sort of outro intro music. Alrighty. So let's go take a look at the Hexfire site. I put it up on the screen on full. Um, a couple things you can do. I've never really talked with anybody about this or explained it, but you'll see there are some buttons here at the bottom of this site. One where you can go to full screen mode. Okay, bring it up to full screen. Okay, you also have a fit to page and a couple sliders here, a slider here for zooming. From this page, if you want to see more advanced data, there's too many pages and too many different ways we want to look at information to get them all on one page. I suppose we can work on that. I could try to figure some more things out there. But um, one of besides having the menu here on the left-hand side, is pages I think people would want to go to first or that I want to show first. I also have this navigate to page menu. And you can do the drop down and pick from a selection of different items that are here. And one of the ones I want to go after is called Advanced Staking Data. Click Go, and it'll bring you to the new page. And then on this page, I've chosen to organize this by putting different images up on the screen, um, and just with the titles. I kind of felt it was a little bit easier to navigate this way rather than some different buttons. And so the two different things I'd say are related here, well, maybe three. We've got our penalized stakes, which are historically penalized stakes, so we can go see what's been penalized. We can also go see what expired stakes are unclaimed at this point, meaning they haven't been ended, so they continue to bleed out. And we can also have an emergency end stake calculator. Now, people do a lot of different things within this system. Um, and so there's, and for various reasons, right? That only they might know because we don't know what everybody's up to. So you can come here and go see what's happened, whether or not somebody's gotten fudded out of their position, whether they ended early, whether they ended late, and see what's happened to those stakes. And it gives you a little bit of insight. So we can go look and say, okay, well, let's look at actual end date. And I'm going to slide this baby over. Let's look at all the stakes that were ended in the last day. This does turn over and get updated 000 UTC. So yes, there are stakes that will be missing from today. I'm going to go to what's most interesting here to look at. Let's look at the biggest stakes. Well, let's go down. So we've got some rather large stakes or medium-sized stakes. I guess 2 million is not that big, but 2,500,000, whatever. And you can see little tiny amounts of penalties maybe coming off of this overall. Um, your guess is as good as mine as to why somebody would decide to unstake the day after and pay a penalty. But this gives you a good view of how they've been penalized. So a lot of times we think that the worst that you'll lose everything, but what's actually happened is that um, they had staked 2.1 million 800 2.1 I should say it over again, 2,182,000, and they did get back 2,133,000. So it's not quite as cruel as you would imagine, but it was also a very short stake, and which plays into this calculation significantly. Another thing you can look at here is nukes. So let's look at the worst case yesterday. So yeah, we had some stakes get completely nuked yesterday, 3 of them. Again, I can't explain why somebody would do it. Maybe they weren't paying attention. I don't know. Um, but this was started back in April of 2020. So this was firming up to be a very nice stake um, with a payout. And for whatever reason, that person did close that out. Um, it was only about 16%. Their staked HEX was 102,000, and they lost all of it, including all of the yield that had been gained. So that gave them a 100% negative ROI. So we call that a nuke. And if you wanted to go further, you can go to the link to Etherscan and go look at that guy's staking ladder or other stakes to see what other kinds of behaviors are there. So you can come through and look at this information in a couple different ways. The nukes are interesting because as much as, and that's one of the reasons to have this discussion, um, is that, apparently people continue to do this, right? So I wanted to go to 100%. Now, again, I can't tell you why they do it, but they do it. And so we've had quite a few nukes over the period of time since HEX has started for quite a bit of HEX. Here's the actual end dates. So let's go ahead and we'll sort downwards on that and just go and look. And you can see just about every day somebody nukes their entire stake. Okay. Sometimes the quantities don't make any sense. Like, why would you even spend the gas to do it? But again, I don't know exactly who all these players are. And then you see some rather large ones here and there, and I just think it's people not taking the time to do the research. Um, so perhaps even us talking about it won't help very much because if they don't do the research in the first place, maybe they will never see these videos or ever get this information. Uh, so lots of times people want to know what the types of penalties they could expect. So one of the ways you can check and see here is, let's say you had some sort of a stake. I don't know. Somebody had asked me recently, well, what if I made a 2-year stake? Or a 1-year stake, how much penalty would I pay? And so one of the things you can do is you come in here and do, like, put in your days, 365, 365, and go look at stakes that have ended in paid penalties that were staked for 1 year. And then you can say, well, show me the ones that got all the way to 99. The ones that got to 99% to 100%. And you'll see sometimes even the ones that get to 100%, um, they have a penalty on them because they went too long. They waited too long, and you can see that right here, with the actual end dates being greater than 2 weeks after the end date. Um, as far as time goes. So you can kind of peruse these and see what people have done. Another way to look at this would be show me. Let's go the 40% was a good one. Somebody had asked about that. Put that in. Okay. Open this up a little bit to capture some in this kind of range. All right. So let's say you had a stake and you wanted to truly understand what people are paying for ending stakes. And again, we're sorted downwards from the current date. Okay, and we can see that someone just recently had gotten to about 40%, and they had 15,436 staked, and after paying their penalty, they still got back 15,232. They gave up all of their interest and a little bit of their principal to do that. So I'll stop here on this page. You guys can come here, take a look, and see. I did this as kind of an impromptu live stream. Really don't have an audience for live streaming, so maybe in the future we'll see more of that. Um, so I just went and checked. I'm not sure we have anybody actually watching. I guess it would help to tell people I was doing it, right? Okay, so we looked at penalized stakes. So those are actually stakes that have been ended and paid a penalty. Unclaimed HEX. What's unclaimed HEX? Well, you can go through and look at um, look at all this information down here at the bottom about good accounting function and whatnot. But you can also come in here and use this table to look at stakes that have ended or should have ended that passed their end date, but someone hasn't actually run GA or their run GA or ended the stake. And every day there are more that come in. Um, you can see that this date is set at 10/28/22 because you don't start accruing until 2 weeks after. And so the ones that started getting penalized on the 28th, and you can see some pretty interesting numbers there. We have new stakes entering the burn phase here, or the penalty phase. I moved it all to the same date, 2 weeks ago from today. Let me do a down here. So we have a stake for 250,000. Um, again, don't know what each staker's thinking and why they're thinking it, but this one should have been ended. It's not ended, so it has now begun to accrue a penalty. And that penalty is a gift to the staker class because the staker class will share in that along with the OA. And this will continue until it's completely burned. We go to 100%, open up my date range, and let's look at all the ones that have been burned 100%. You'll notice there are some that are out there now that have been burned completely, that look to be fairly high. I mean, 278,000, etc. But this number used to be in the millions, 100 millions, a billion. And what's been happening is people come along and they good account these stakes over time. So right now, if you wanted to pay the gas for a 350-day stake and good account it, you would pay out 278,000 hex to the staker class and also free up 29 T-shares. So right now, I'm pretty sure there's the ROI on spending the gas for you personally isn't there, but it does help keep the system clean. And I expect when we look at pulse chain, these will get cleared out even more. And of course, along with these, I did look at the big ones first. I can go the other way and look, and you can see the many, 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 many tiny stakes. Some as little as a few hearts, which I don't have the decimals on for, that are just completely burned. Move up a little bit on that. Let's go up to, let's say, I don't know, 1,000. So you can see these very small stakes that are out there. Now, on the one hand, these represent perhaps forgotten stakes, right? Perhaps forgotten stakes that just didn't make sense to end stake. But it also represents meat on the bone. for future hexagons. So 10 years from now, at 10 times, 30 times, 40 times the price, it would be this is like fruit that's hanging on a tree ready to be picked, because in the future it might make sense to uh, good account these stakes and distribute the very small amount of hex, these thousands of hex, because the value will be so high, and in that way creates additional yield for hexagons at that time. So let me show you the final panel I wanted to talk about, which is the emergency end state calculator. Um, so a couple different things that I'd say about this before we really get started with it. First off, do some research before you even approach the idea of doing any types of emergency end stakes. Yes, it's your stakes. You can do whatever you want to do, but make sure you understand what the penalties are before you do anything. I've done my best to try to calculate them here, um, but this is just for information. You need to make sure you verify it. You can go look at how these penalties are calculated at the HEX wiki, and also review the HEX contract in layman terms. All right. And in general, just kind of like general statement, your payout, emergency end stake payout, what the stake returns at the end is going to be your principal plus any yield to date minus penalties. That's the calculation. And so every stake can be a little bit different. There's no standard rule to apply. Yes, there's a set of rules, but you have to go through the process to determine, how long is this stake, what's my minimum penalty, what gets penalized, etc. And again, you can see some pretty terrible results. I mean, there are absolutely stakes that if we ended them right now would be, minus 100, and we don't want that. I wouldn't like to see that with people. So you see, looking at stakes that are out there, we've got 151,000 of them. That if they were ended today, they would just be complete nukes, probably. Okay, so definitely something to be wary of. But what you can do is at least get a good idea of your current situation, and if for some reason you feel like you need to go look at emergency end staking, and you're just curious, maybe come in, drop your address in here. Okay. Drop it in, or drop all of your addresses in there, comma separated, turn the filter on, and you'll be able to see what the likely outcome is. Now, let's look at one of these right here. Let's start with this guy. I'm just taking a random one right off the top. Um, so this particular stake, we see the address, we see the start, we see the expected end date. That end date's coming up here pretty soon, right? I think it's actually tomorrow, right? Or maybe today, depending what time it is. How many days it was staked, the number of T shares, how many days have been served, the progress, etc. You can see this in kind of the calculation all over, and then you can see what the penalty is. So that's a pretty hefty penalty to pay for ending one day early. So I don't recommend that. But notice it's not eating into well, actually, in this case, it's eating in the principal a lot more. But this one looks like it's a big payday, based on it being 2019 start. So that's a really bad one, and so you can see they're going to get hit pretty heavily with a big penalty of 3 million. Whew. So I don't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. Now let's go look at. See what I want to look at here. Uh, Probably could put some other filters in here that would make this a little bit easier. But I'm going to show. Let's go by date. Let's do progress, 40%. I'm looking at stakes that have, since we were looking at this on the other panel, um, 40% progress. Give us a second to update. Okay. I'm going to go down and go the other way with it. Change my direction. We can see that there's many, many, many stakes that at 40% would be nukes. And that's because they probably have longer days. And then we have some that are not going to be complete nukes, you know. And also the big nukes tend to be started before big payday. But then you have this other category where people may have been recently staking, 2021, for a shorter period of time, where yes, if they were to merge the end stake, they would have a negative ROI, which means they would have lost some of their principal. But if they were to restake Quattro Cinco, they would actually get more T-shirts. So that was an interesting little tidbit of information. To be able to see that some people could actually come in and restake. And in some cases, now that's not unexpected, right? That would be the case. Um, right? Because longer pay is better. You get more T-shares by going out longer. And so a smaller amount of HEX stake Quattro Cinco can get many more um, T-shares. So as an example, this is a 2-day stake. We're talking about taking the return, even though it was penalized and staking Quattro Cinco, they would get roughly 3 times more, maybe, in T-shares. Going from 0.52 to 1.52. So just a simple example. Um, all right. Well, in the comments, let me know or contact me. Let me know if you have additional questions. I just wanted to share these panels with you, these visuals. I certainly don't recommend that people merge the end stake, but if you are looking and you are curious, you can use these to see one what the stakes have similar to ones you want to look at, how they've been penalized in the past, even the recent past, and two, at least look at the calculator to see whether or not the calculation gives you an amount. Okay. Oh, I have a watcher. I see a watcher. I went over to the chat. I see Celt Hex is there. Um, I'm still learning how to do this. What buttons to push and how to get things up on the screen. All right, so I see that you're asking, could we run the GA function on a bleeding stake without a wallet? No. Somebody could create. Well, let me think about this for a second. The answer is simply no. Somebody has to have a wallet. And the reason you have to have a wallet is that somebody has to pay the gas, and the gas has to be in a wallet. And even if you created a contract that was just simply push the button contract, somebody's got to have a wallet attached with that, on the DApp. So I guess we could create a contract that just simply let you go push the button, but somebody would have had to fund the wallet. Um, Now, for emergency end stakes, remember, I'm going to try to cover this. So I did go over a couple different ideas or topics here. So your question is, how do you get those hex that you emergency end stake? So let's start first with good accounting. If you good account a stake, you run the good accounting feature or function, and when that function is run, it will calculate a penalty and then distribute it as part of that transaction. And that's where it'll go over to the half over to the OA, and the other half will come out to stakers. Um, for emergency end stakes, when you emergency end stake, it's just like ending a stake. I mean, it's just the same calculations in use. If you end the stake, you'll get back whatever hex minus the penalty. If the penalty is greater than your hex and your yield, then you don't get anything back at all. Um, but if there was yield or even principal that remained, it would go into your wallet. Yeah, and I feel terrible for you, man. If you did emergency end stake and lost that many T-shares, because that's a hell of a thing to do. But yeah, this is one of the reasons you don't emergency end stake and not do it casually. It's very important to check and see what those might be. And again, I'd send you over to that Hex Noob or to the Hex Wiki to review that and look it up. And then I would cross-reference with Staker app if you're using it to see what the Staker app tells you. And then also, of course, you could utilize the information I have on the site. But before somebody does any action like ending early, you really should go check it out first. All right, I think I checked the boxes on everything I needed to say about these panels. Uh, you guys let me know, like I said, in the comments, questions, and I'll try to respond back. Maybe make some more videos. Got to go from there. All right. Thank you, my one and only viewer, Cell X. I appreciate you joining in and asking some questions. And we'll see you guys next time.